This video was brought to you by Manscaped.
If you've ever played a Tekken game, you know all about stances. While characters switching their fighting stance to access new moves can be found in many different fighting games, they're far more prevalent in the Tekken series. A huge part of Tekken's identity is the sheer number of moves each character has, so naturally, stances are going to make up a big part of these movesets. But what makes a Tekken character a stance character? Surely it's not enough just for a character to have a stance or two. I mean, every character in this game has at least one unique stance, so maybe it's the character with the most stances? Well, surprisingly, no. Yoshimitsu and Steve are the two characters with the most stances in the entire game.
Both having 7, yes, you heard me right, 7 unique stances.
Neither of these characters are generally considered to be stance-based characters. So what are stance characters in Tekken 8? And where did all the controversy surrounding stance characters come from? If you've seen any Tekken 8 discourse since the game launched, you've likely heard many people complaining about how every character is becoming a stance character now, especially with the DLC fighters. Are stance characters just hated by the larger community? I'm going to be answering all of these questions in today's video, so make sure to like and subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it. Like I said before, every character has at least one unique character-specific stance, opening up a variety of brand new attacks, alongside the default generic stances that every character in Tekken has. Crouching, while standing, sidestep, these are all technically stances, but what makes someone a stance-based character?
These are generally characters whose moveset and game plan revolves around them switching in between multiple stances,
usually 2 to 3, and mixing their opponents up. Let's look at a character like Lars. He has 3 stances: dynamic entry, silent entry, and limited entry. This character relies on going into one stance, then transitioning from that stance into another, and applying a mix-up. Lars is actually unable to get into his last 2 stances with a button press, like most characters. He's forced to either use a move that automatically transitions him into the stance, or do his natural stance transitions. For Lars, pressing forward 3 will put you into dynamic entry, holding forward will then shift you into silent entry, and pressing down again will put you into limited entry. And good Lars players will switch between the stances and constantly mix you up with insane pressure. If you've ever faced a Lars in ranked, you know exactly what I mean, and you know how annoying it can feel. He'll jump at you with a +5 on block heat engager in one of his stances that automatically brings him into another, and then you get ready to try and guess what he's going to do, and then he'll often go into another stance. These type of mind games are at the core of stance-based characters. Are they going to pull the trigger early and make you guess? Are they going to delay their mix-up? Or open up a whole new set of mix-ups by transitioning into another stance? These are the things you think about when fighting a stance-based character. Some characters fit this definition very easily, like Lydia, Eddie, and Xiao Yu. These characters are very clearly designed to be stance-based mix-up characters. That's pretty much their entire identity to most people. But defining what makes a stance character can be very difficult. Let's look at a newcomer to the series, Reina. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Alright, listen up men. November's almost over, which means it's time to wrap up those beards and mustaches and get ready to look clean and fresh for the holidays. And I'm here to help you with that, with the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped, and their latest release, the Chairman Pro. Finding a good shaver can be a real struggle. I've gone through so many that have broke, cut my skin, or just plain out didn't work properly. And honestly, I was ready to give up on electric shavers entirely. Until Manscaped sent me the Chairman Pro to try out. Guys, this thing is seriously a game changer. It's the most seamless and comfortable shave I've ever had. With Flex Adjust technology, the blade adapts to your face and neck for a precise and comfortable shave, even in those hard to reach spots. It's waterproof, it has surprisingly good battery life, lasting up to 75 minutes on a single charge. I honestly have no complaints with this razor. It's just been so great. So if you're looking to upgrade your grooming game or give someone the ultimate gift this holiday season, you can get the Chairman Pro for 20% off, plus free international shipping by using the promo code BOOGARD here at manscaped.com, or clicking the link in the description and the pinned comment. Join the over 11 million people worldwide who trust Manscaped and give the gift of grooming this season. When the game first came out, everyone said she was a stance-based mix-up character, but after playing a lot of her, I'm not sure I actually agree. Her most important move, Raiden, brings her into her Sentai stance for mix-ups, and you are able to transition into her Heaven's Wrath stance, but this is very rarely used, and isn't generally considered a great option. Besides those 2 stances, she has her classic Mishima Wave Dash, and a couple other evasive stances that are almost never used. Is this a stance-based character? I'm not actually sure. Her gameplay relies on aggressive pressure and rushdown, but how much of this comes from her stances and stance transitions? Maybe splitting up the definition into stance transition characters, whose main goal is to shift between multiple stances very quickly, like Lars, Lydia, and Eddie, and stance mix-up characters, who have less stance transitions, but still rely on their stances to mix their opponent up, like Reyna and Alyssa. That again makes the definition very broad. How many characters in this game use stances to mix you up? A huge amount. Almost every character, to be honest. Technically, Kazuya's 50-50 can be considered a stance mix-up. Wave Dash is a stance, right? Let's look at Yoshimitsu. He has the most stances in the game, but people don't generally describe him as a stance character. To be honest, it's hard to really describe Yoshi as any kind of playstyle because of how incredibly unique of a character he really is. He doesn't rely on stances for pressure, and I definitely wouldn't say stances are essential to his game plan. Like I said, a lot of characters in this game are sort of in a weird halfway point between being considered a stance-based fighter or just having strong stance options. It seems like as Tekken gets older, more and more characters are being given stance-based mix-ups. This brings us to the controversy surrounding these type of characters. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard a ton of people say stuff like, why is every character a stance character these days? Or, Namco only makes stance rushdown characters. Where did this come from? Well, Tekken 8 introduced 3 brand new characters to the series, who funnily enough are all considered stance-based pressure characters by some people. I mentioned it earlier that most people considered Reyna to be a stance character when the game first released, and most people still do, but Victor and Azucena, they were nowhere near being stance mix-up characters at the start of the game. Both of them were just super easy, all-around broken top tiers. I've made individual videos on both of these characters if you're interested, but to summarize, both of these characters were nerfed very hard, and they were given a ton of new stance stuff. Azucena with all the new Libertador stuff she was given, and Victor with this crazy new EI stance transition stuff. I'm sure most of you have dealt with a Victor player who gets you to the wall and just starts looping his crazy stance pressure, and you just have no idea what's going on. Whether you would consider these two as stance-based characters or not, it does definitely seem like the Tekken Balance team has just really been drawn to these type of characters recently. Especially with the DLC. Eddie and Lydia are both stance-based characters. That's like their entire thing. And honestly, even Heihachi is more stance-reliant than he's ever been before. I remember the initial freakout on social media when Heihachi's moveset was first revealed. Everyone thought he was going to be turned into another Lydia. This of course didn't end up happening, but he is absolutely moving in that direction. At least somewhat. He's never relied on stances more, and he's never had more moves that bring him straight into stance. Considering the 3 new characters in Tekken 8 and the first 3 DLC characters all took on elements of the stance character archetype, it's pretty fair for people to criticize this if they personally aren't into that kind of playstyle. I get it. Fighting stance-based characters can be annoying, especially if you don't know the character matchups, which, let's face it, the vast majority of us don't. Stance characters have always been one of, if not the most hated archetypes of characters in Tekken. I think Namco should probably chill out on all the stance pressure stuff for a bit, just to ensure a proper variety of characters. Heihachi as a character definitely feels very unique, but I think after Lydia and Eddie, and the stance changes they've recently made to Azucena and Victor, we've had our fill for stance characters, at least for a while. I personally think it's the perfect time for them to give us a super fundamental focused character, like Kazumi, or some other very distinctive archetype. Maybe a certain other grappler, but I don't want to get my hopes up too much. I know a lot of people hate stance characters, but if you struggle against them, I highly recommend you take some time to actually learn the stance character you've been struggling with. For me personally, I was struggling with fighting Lars. To me, it just looked like all he did was just spin around and I would just auto-lose. But after actually watching some guides on the character, and playing him for myself, I feel like I've leveled up in multiple ways. Firstly, I obviously got a way better understanding of how the character specifically works and what his weaknesses are. That's obvious, but I also feel like through doing that, I improved a lot as a player. As someone who mostly plays Mishimas, these stance mix-up archetypes were largely new to me, and after playing Lars, I felt like I got a way better understanding of stance characters as a whole. The general playstyle, what they're looking for, what the archetype lacks. I really feel like I learned a lot, so I can't recommend this enough. Learning characters that are out of your comfort zone really is one of the best ways to improve in this game. At the end of the day, characters like this aren't going anywhere. They're a core part of Tekken, and like I said earlier, it seems like the Tekken developers are gravitating more and more towards this playstyle. So you might as well bite the bullet and actually start learning how to deal with characters like these. Who knows, maybe you'll try one of them out and actually end up really enjoying the playstyle, and then switch into a character like that. You never know, right? Anyway, that's about all I've got for today's video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe to support more scripted Tekken 8 videos like this. It really goes a huge way, as only about 20% of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed. Make sure to go check out the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped, if you want to support the channel. And as always, a big thanks to my YouTube members and Patreon patrons. Your guys' support is a really big help. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.